Hello, and welcome to another episode of TacoBytes, your daily bite of Degen, episode 819, coming to you live from somewhere, nowhere, Dallas, Texas. It is a beautiful Monday night, and I have the one and only David Johnson with me today. We're going to be talking about NeurIPS, and man, David, hi.
Good to see you, brother. Yeah, NeurIPS was really awesome this year. It was up in Vancouver, and there were like, I don't know, 10,000 or more PhDs, AI experts, like all converge. They've got this setup where there's not only like the normal talks and expos, but everybody has brought a poster. And it's like a summary of their thesis, their model, their algorithm, all the things they want to talk about. And they have these huge rooms where everybody puts up their poster, and just you got 10,000 experts cycling through asking questions about the research. So it was pretty wild. And yeah, I kind of took it upon myself to go try to red pill as many people as I could on decentralized AI and smart agents. And yeah, got a great reception. So it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. That was actually something I wanted to talk to you about because, we talk about green pilling, we talk about orange pilling. Breaking free from the matrix, obviously red pilling, that sort of like goes hand in hand. There was a moment in my head where I was like, well, it could be a blue pill because like every AI gets like represented by like a blue light in some shape or form, only when it's, but you got to go back to Morpheus roots, red pill.
Yeah, that's the only way out of the matrix. So, but it was cool. I mean, a lot of people there were focused on how to improve like the next large language model, how to fine tune them, how to do all these sort of advanced techniques. But I found like a good set of people that sort of saw agents are like this next big wave. And that's kind of like what everybody was talking about. It felt like the posters and the talks were kind of like maybe 6 months behind the current hot trends, because you have to, submit the papers a long way before the actual event. But what people really wanted to talk about was agents and how to use all these models and what's going on in crypto with, virtuals and truth terminal and AI 16Z. Like, it's just sort of really blowing people away how fast that segment is growing. And all of that's happened in like the last 3 or 4 months, right?
Yep.
And so like with Morpheus, we've been talking about this for a year, but like other people are just like right now waking up to, oh, an agent, it's going to have an avatar, it's going to talk to people, it's going to have a wallet, it's going to be able to do all these cool things. So yeah, it's nice to see that validation in reality was sort of catching up with what we've been talking about.
Nice. And so for those that don't know, can you tell what NeurIPS is?
Sure. I believe it's short for Neural Information Processing Systems, basically large language models, right? Neural or neural network systems is sort of another way to think about AI. I mean, AI has been around for 4 or 5 decades, a long time, and it's gone through these different waves. So neural or neural networks is a good way to think of them, but the sort of modern wave right now is large language models, diffusion models for images, stuff like that. And so that's sort of the background. And this is like mostly a research conference. Like I found one giant hall and it was just theoretical stuff. And eventually I found the other giant hall full of the application people, like how you actually use these models. And so, but a lot of talent there, right? Those are the guys building these agents, right? And shipping this stuff. And there was a good showing from the decentralized AI community, right? So Morpheus held a hangout with Bagel Network, went to the Akash events. There were BitTensor events, meetups. There's one guy who drove 6 hours from Northern Canada to come and meet other people in the Morpheus community. Dude told me his birthday is the white paper day. And he was just like ecstatic to like meet other Morpheus community members in person. Like, so he drove all the way down to Vancouver. So like, yeah, that energy was really cool. It was funny. There's a lot of people that showed up to the side events. They're like, oh, there's a conference in town. It's like they came out because they wanted to, talk about decentralized AI. So, it was really cool. It felt like the first year that decentralized AI, that smart agents, like that crypto really showed up at the event and made a big impact. Noose was there. They had a cool event. Like, so there's all this crossover. I got to red pill a bunch of people on Venice. So there's nothing like just showing somebody how it works, right? So you pop out the phone, you show them Venice.ai, and they're like, oh, wow, all the open source models, it's uncensored, it's private. Like, cool, I'm just going to use this now. Right.
I love, so the last time I did like a live demo piece for Venice was in during Tokenized Las Vegas. And I literally waited for I did the horrible, I paused and waited. I didn't just roll along to wait for people to pull out their phone, made them ask me a question. And then I had them go into settings and delete everything to show them how easy it was to like delete their own information and stuff like that. And I was like, you just took the very first step of like deleting your own information, I wish I went. I was at a different conference.
It's all good. It's cool that the community's got large enough where like there were awesome speakers down at the Puerto Rico Blockchain Week, right? I saw that, Luke and Ryan and Brian Bougerie, and all those guys were down representing the community in Puerto Rico as it was going on the same time as NeurIPS, and people were shipping code and people were building smart contracts. Like, a year ago, the community, like everybody would show up at one event and that was everybody. And now like people are sort of spreading out and breaking into all these different verticals, which is, I think, really cool. So, but I'm glad you were representing down there.
Definitely. I got to do a very good demonstration of staking, unstaking, and then staking, and how easy that is, but then also claiming and got to show off Morelord as well.
Nice.
I forget the gentleman's name who built
that. Ryan Condra, guy from Lumerin.
Yeah, Lumerin. Yeah.
He's only 7 foot tall. It's hard to
7 foot tall. Yeah. No, but Ryan's really, he keeps pushing out new stuff on that alone, while at the same time pushing out everything on Lumerin. And that was really awesome. Jeff got to do a really good presentation on running in his own agent. And he's one of those people that took the time to get his like 5 different safety API keys from Twitter to add it to his Moorbot. And like showed how cool it was to post from his Moorbot and stuff like that. Brian held an amazing event. Like for me, it was very down to earth / like remember the old days in a back room that where like we're completely like me, Luke, and this other gentleman, Steve, found each other. We're like, you here for the tech? We're yeah. We're walking around. We're finally like calling him like, hey, like, and he's like, well, down this hallway, then that hallway, and so it was sort of fun. But it was a full room, and it was a really good time. And we even had Kyle come in virtually and showcase in 10 minutes how to launch a more 20 factory token and stuff like that. So test 7 was created virtually during that presentation. Wow. So
nice. Yeah. I mean, it's really coming together. Like the things that we were, talking about, and the white paper last September, like it's live. Like compute, all these things are coming together. Maybe one thing to put on the horizon is Builders is getting really close. It's been in testnet, it's been audited, and that's like the big 4th milestone, right, for Morpheus, is not just capital, code, and compute, but actually reward builders. And there's like 40 plus people in the community ready to, be builders on Morpheus. And so if you go to more.builders, there's a huge list of people participating in the ecosystem. So I can't wait for that. It's looking like it's going to be super early January. So
Yeah.
we're not far away from seeing that last piece sort of slot into the puzzle and go live. And I think the timing is perfect because, you know, I'm not sure which agents you would have listed 6 months ago or
Yeah.
even 3 months ago, but now there's a critical mass of agent builders out there, right? And they all need capital, code, compute, and rewards, right? And keep in mind, Morpheus is agnostic, right? You can build on Truth Terminal or AI16Z or virtuals or anywhere you want, and Morpheus wants to be the discovery, the agent reward system, the monetization across all those platforms, right?
Yeah.
Be that neutral infrastructure. So yeah, it feels like the time is right, and I can't wait to see that go live.
Speaking of neutral infrastructure, some of the, I don't want to call it FUD that I've caught in my headlines was a lot of the talks at NeurIPS around um, boxing in AI, heavily regulating it, and I like restricting its access to compute models, to compute and stuff like that. How did you see that? Or the talks go for that?
Well, the funny thing is that might have been the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
I heard not a single person talk about safety or alignment or any of those things, right? So apparently the media is still picking up the headlines. Maybe that's what sells is scary AI. But like none of the experts were talking about that, and it feels like that wave of like scare tactics has largely gone away, right?
Yeah.
Because most of that was generated back when they were trying to do the regulatory capture in 2023, right? And it's scary, so it has to be regulated. But now you've got the incoming, administration publicly saying open source AI is the way, right? And it has to be censored, it has to be permissionless, right? Otherwise, somebody ends up controlling it. So to see that shift in just 1 year, right, from like super, regulatory focus to embracing open source is a hell of a shift, right? And everybody recognized that open source is caught up, right? Between Llama and Grok and all these great open source models now, like there's no moat. Like people were equally using Llama or ChatGPT or other options in their research, and a lot of the research has shifted to the open source models because you can't fine tune the proprietary one, right? You can't push it forward because you don't know what the weights are, right?
Yeah.
And ChatGPT is just getting worse. Like they used to give you the weights, then they didn't do that. Then they gave you the API. Now they won't give you the API, and they want like $200 a month to sign up. And it's like, I'll just run the open source one. It's just as good. Thanks, I'm good, right? So there seemed to be a lot of openness. So it's interesting to hear that gap between like what was reported and like what people were actually talking about.
That's where I sort of saw it, but I didn't know if it had been talked about at all. And like, because around the same time, both Andreessen's talk with Rogan sort of was making its real like second wave, and being pulled apart for different sound bites. And then I think I don't know, was it at NeurIPS that Sora 2 was unveiled, or was it like day one?
It must have been pretty much the same time. I don't know if they did it at NeurIPS or their own event, but they rolled it out, and it looks amazing. But the truth is, there's a bunch of open source video models that are doing something very similar, right? And so, I think gone are the days where people think that ChatGPT has like this unassailable position versus like just they're one of the options, right?
Yeah,
and there's other good
the disruptors forgot that they were disrupting things and think that they own, that they're royalty. Did they pave a way? Yes. Will not silence that, because they got it in everyone's face, made it talked about. But at the same time, then they tried to put this box on it that only we can control. Oh, and by the way, everything you tell it, we know, and we own it now. So it's one of the fun things I got to do was talk to a lot of different projects that are using ChatGPT wrapper, API wrapper, and stuff like that, and point them in the direction of Venice and how to get access to the Venice API and stuff like that. And so it's a really big change for people to, like, they think that they're downgrading when they're really not. And there's some really cool stuff coming on the horizon with Morpheus and Venice for, like, with having a T execution environment, and the FHE side. So fully homomorphic encryption, trusted execution environment from what I say to my answer. If fully encrypted, people will see that data was transmitted, but they don't know who to, what for, where back to, or what it was. And even on the servers that execute this inference. And so it makes me, I brought this up, and it's a really interesting, I would like to hear your take. We're at a blockchain conference talking about the power of transparency, yet then at the same angle, we're talking about privacy.
Sure.
Where's that line?
I think that's perfectly expected. I want privacy for the individual, and I want transparency for the public blockchain, right?
Yep.
And that's the way it should be, right? Like, in theory, the government was supposed to be transparent, and the people had the right to their own papers and letters and privacy, enshrined in the Fourth Amendment, right? And so it's been warped, right? Now the government, classifies everything, and everything's got to be secret, but they expect to know every transaction, everything you've ever done, all your text messages, the sort of the surveillance state, right? And so, but I think we're just returning to the mean, which is, like, historically people expected privacy, right? And privacy is an important human right, and because of encryption, we're getting that back, right? And so I think that's the shift that's going on. And some people will prioritize that, some won't. It's unfortunately one of those things that doesn't really matter until it really matters. Like, oh well, it was no big deal. And then I flew into that country where they didn't like what I said over there, and then I got arrested or whatever, right? And so,
they didn't like the question I asked.
Yeah, and so and like you said, they're storing that information forever, right?
Yep.
So you don't have to even trust ChatGPT today. You have to trust ChatGPT 10 years from now, and the subpoena they get, or the country that they're forced to hand the information over to. Like, there's an infinite number of edge cases there, right? So there's a lot of reasons to use the open source, but I don't think that's why we win. I think we win because it's cheaper, it's faster, it's better, right?
Yep.
95% of all servers don't run on Linux because of the ethics. They run on Linux because who the hell wants to pay for a Microsoft license every time they spin up a new computer? Like, developers don't have the money for that, right? They're just trying to build something, right? And so that's the ace that we have up the sleeve of decentralized AI. Is it's just better, right? It's just faster because it's permissionless. You can do all the use cases you can't do in the centralized context, right? Whether that's sending money, right? I don't need my ChatGPT to tell me how to do something. I want it to do it for me, right? That's the promise of having a smart agent. I want to multiply my ability to work 10x, 100x, 1,000x, right? I just want to set up these tasks and have an agent do it for me, and it be my personal agent, right? That's aligned to my outcomes, right? That's really exciting. That's like a superpower. So I wrote this article recently, who owns your brain, right? And I made the argument that if you don't have a smart agent, it's not you, right? Somebody else is, and they're already starting to shove advertisements now into ChatGPT and Bing's AI. And, like, it's not even giving me the answer anymore. It's whatever somebody bid to tell me the answer is, right?
Yep.
And so it's like, I want to own my own intelligence. I want to get the benefit of this, because what happens is these big tech companies, they're getting 10x the benefit, and they're kind of giving crumbs to the users, right? Here's free Gmail, right? Here's a free, productivity tool or whatever. But the data they get out of it is worth 10 times as much. And so with agents, either they're going to get the benefit or you're going to get the benefit, right? And so I think people will naturally flow towards where they get the benefit. And if you think about it as an extension of your mind, the same way your phone is, right? You would never rent a smartphone from a company, right? You'd have to, you know, it's your memories, it's your social contacts, it's your work, it's your food, it's everything, right? Imagine you'd have to lose all that every time you changed carriers. Like, it wouldn't make any sense, right? So ubiquitously around the world, people own their own phone so they can own their memories and all of that extension of their mind. And I think it's going to be the same thing with smart agents.
Yeah, we're seeing, and like the simple, the access piece too of the, what happened if they just turn it off, you know?
Yeah.
And like, or what, like, they go the same route as Google credits or Amazon credits. They give you $100,000 worth of credits that either you burn through more quickly, like you burn through 99,000 of it while you're sleeping, or they get you for the like a year or two, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, now it's $10,000 a month.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's what just happened in China, right? They banned ChatGPT. So sorry if you were using it there, not available in your country, right?
Yep.
It doesn't have to just be, censorship via regime. Like, maybe the income of the country is really low and they don't think the high odds of converting people to a pro account. They just block those IP addresses. Like, sorry, guy in Nigeria. Sorry, Brazil. Sorry, sorry, a few billion people. You don't get intelligence, right? And so, that doesn't make any sense, right? People are going to want access to intelligence. So you look at where Venice has taken off. It's in South America, right?
Yep.
It's the guy that doesn't want to pay $300 a year, or whatever it's gotten up to, 500 or $1,000 a year to ChatGPT, but he has a smartphone. He wants to use intelligence, right? And so they added Spanish, and they've seen huge viral uptake. I think the last time I talked to Tina, one of the co-founders there, they were north of 300,000 users, 100,000 daily actives. Like, how sticky is that? That's how often people are coming back to use the app. Like, it's clearly hit a chord, right? And is going viral with people. So hopefully, like, that's the tip of the spear, right? As we see Venice grow to 1 million users, millions of users, and it really sort of introduces people to all these open source models and having their own smart agent and the whole thing.
Yep. And so for those that don't necessarily know what we are talking about, if you're on Twitter, you can go to Ask Venice, VENICE, or you can go to venice.ai. It is a simple enhanced web browser app. So you're not actually going to a Google Play Store or the Apple Store. And the reason why is because all the data is stored in a browser, easily deletable. Even if you delete your history or your cache, you will delete your data. But you can use it anonymously, or you can make an account that saves your information in your browser for longer by signing in with either a wallet or simple social auths as well. One of the benefits, if you use a wallet and you actually have one more token in your wallet, I think more is it, like $21?
Yeah, something like that. And actually, they just added support for Base. So whether you hold a More token on Arbitrum or Base, it'll detect it in your wallet when you connect it.
And you get the pro account for free. And so right now it's, I think it's $49 per year rather than the $30 per month of ChatGPT. And I did see a tweet that they are raising prices at the start of the year. But if you still hold one more token, you get pro for free.
Yep.
So some of the latest models are there, which are really awesome. It's been a really fun time seeing Venice grow. I remember the call with Eric Voorhees when we were all live, and he's like, it went live, and my first thing to him was like, your wallet connect is broken. and he was like, no, it's not. it'll be fixed.
Yeah,
So
no, they've iterated so fast. Every time I log into the app, I say log into the app, like you're saying, you just open it on your phone. But it looks like an app on my phone. I know it's a progressive web app, but every time I open it, it's like, oh, reload for new version, reload for new version, reload for new version. Like almost every day,
yeah,
they're doing something new, right? So it started with text and image and coding models. Now you can create characters. Now you can control the prompts. Like it's become super easy to use, and they're just like making it more and more powerful. Um, and what I really love is they built in search. So I don't have to go to Google anymore. I just ask Venice. It not only just gives me the answer, but it lists all the citations, and I never had to scroll through a bunch of ads on Google. It just gave me the answer. So I've not only deleted ChatGPT, I've basically stopped using Google, right?
yeah,
Because I remember 90s Google, and it was really good results. And like I don't know what the hell happened, but it like keeps going down. I don't know if like they pushed on the revenue too hard, or they're promoting too many ads, but like it's not what it used to be. And so I'd rather just use Venice. Like I can go one place, get my answer, and if I need to continue to a website, I just click on a link. So ever since I saw they upgraded it, Llama 3.3,
yep. I
70
was like,
billion,
they just opened it. Yeah,
great
with
model,
search.
and that one's got the search built in now, right?
Yep.
And that's the other thing, is every time there's a new open source model, it just instantly gets better. Like the same day they'll roll out those models like incredibly quickly. And so it's like a gift, as a birthday present that just keeps on giving, right? Like every few weeks. And that's, I think, what's going to happen here is just open source is going to be undeniably better, faster, more useful. And so unless you're stuck in some corporate for some reason that you need to use the proprietary stuff, or they want to keep all that information, I think most people are just going to use the open source.
Yeah, it goes back to the days of Ask Jeeves. The original days of Ask Jeeves before it was all um, ad spend, be turned into an ad spend thing. And so, but no, one of the other ones that they added is they added a pony realism as well, stable diffusion, obviously, but yeah, some of the new models within the image generation as well. I'm excited to try out Quen and see how that goes. What's really cool is a couple weeks ago, I got to speak on to Bitcoin Startup Labs about AI, Morpheus, Accelerator, Manifest, and like the power of decentralized AI.
Yep.
And there's a code builder. There's a project there that's building a Bitcoin code generator. So for projects writing in on like the layer 2s and stuff like that. So
Yep.
that's going to be some cool stuff. I love seeing the innovation of using decentralized AI. So it was sort of fun all the way around. Even got to hear Tim Draper talking about AI. Was sitting, 2 feet away from New York Mayor Adams. Brock brought him down, and so how he was sort of like making fun of people that was making fun of him for getting paid in Bitcoin all this time. And then sort of where he sort of saw some of the movement of it all. And so it was sort of interesting. Also, I've never heard a mayor drop the F-bomb so often.
True New Yorker. Well, it's
Yeah.
funny, Tim Draper. I was at the DCG event. Digital Currency Group holds a big annual summit, and their whole thing this year was decentralized AI, right? And they dropped a big announcement about an entire new division called Yuma, named after Yuma Consensus, which is what Bitensor is built on, right? And they're just going all in on subnets and decentralized AI and smart agents. And I caught up with Adam Draper there, and got to red pill him on Venice and Morpheus, and like he really really got it. I've got to see him sort of over the years at different events, and Yeah, he tends to be at the leading edge, or I think was one of the first investors in Coinbase and stuff like that. That's Speaking of Coinbase, that's the other thing that's really hit is credit to Brian Armstrong, right? Him and one of the Coinbase developers, Lincoln, have been pushing
Lincoln.
out a constant stream of cool updates about Agent Kit, which
Yep.
is basically a tool set to use their wallet in order to enable an agent to pay on chain, right?
Yep.
So, and working with them, I saw Rakshak, the maintainer of Morpheus for smart agents, just pushed out 0.2.1, has a built-in DCA agent, has a built-in gasless transactions on Base. So integrating into all these Coinbase tools that have been released, and that's starting to power virtuals, a bunch of these platforms, right? So credit to them for kind of leaning in, seeing the agent wave, and putting out good tools, because that's what you really want, right? You want this hooked into the best infrastructure. So I think that's what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, we and for those that don't know, it's USDC gasless on Base. Another big proponent of that is Jesse Pollock. He's really sort of, he's like, I don't get it all, I don't need to, but let's make it happen.
Right.
And so it's been awesome to see the Base engineering team work hand in hand with Morpheus and the entire community at that, not just, and so it's awesome to sort of see how people are working to move things forward, to make things as easy as possible.
Yep.
For owning your own agent. One of the things, I might want to spoil myself for Christmas and buy a new computer, or just buy a desktop that sits in back, and I'm like, well, how do I want to build it? Do I want to build it live with someone else? And I get to play Neanderthal and we just live stream the whole thing. And we put different nodes on, command lines, and just show someone from scratch to finish of how to take a little bit more control of their life. Because the scary part is the biasness, in advertising within agents and stuff. And so that, I don't remember where we were on a panel somewhere together in the world, which is amazing. I love getting to do. Talked about, where we see a lot of agents getting pushed is in the healthcare side of things. I think one of the biggest ones that sets sort of the tone, but isn't a huge use case, is Grace from SingularityNet on that healthcare side. But, agents that take care of those that are at risk, or, my grandma, and keep them company. But then if they automatically start saying, hey, your blood pressure seems a little high, maybe you should like this new version of Lipitor, or something like that. And my grandma's already made a, friend out of this AI agent. And okay, sure, why not? You've steered me right on everything else, And so that's the scary side of it. But I don't I acknowledge it, but I don't like to ruminate on it, because the possibility for good is so much bigger.
Yep.
But we can't ignore it,
100%.
What was some of the, so you got to see, so you said there was one hall of just theoretical, another hall of application. Was there a tiny little maintenance hall of the deranged?
That's a good question. Maybe that was the sort of the outside the hall crew of people sort of nerding out on what's next. But it was interesting. Met a lot of the people that have sort of been heads down in AI that are sort of just now realizing that crypto has compute and capital and all these tools to empower what they're doing. That is, it's enough to keep track of your own field, right? Let alone know what's going on in other fields or industries, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge benefit to cross pollination, right? To going to these events, kind of mixing all the AI people with all the crypto people, and it's an interesting mix. But there's a lot of depth and sort of richness in AI that's developed over the decades, and so the more you understand it, the more you can really understand how to apply it, right? And so I sort of challenged myself to try to. I made the rounds and I tried to see every poster at NeurIPS. I don't know if I did or not, but like and really kind of engage with everybody. Maybe 5 or 10% of the people were talking about agents, right? And really engage with those researchers, show them something new, try to understand their approach. People starting to break into what a multi-agent systems look like, right? What if you have a swarm of agents? What if you have a delegator agent? What if you have a manager agent? Like they're experimenting with all these different frameworks. So, but it was cool to see.
Yeah. Two other things that sort of made headlines this last week on agents or on compute side was the new supercomputer chip. And everyone's sort of scared of what will happen to Bitcoin. And, then there's the simple fact of going back to Satoshi's white paper. He's like, we'll find the block that everyone agrees was valid. We'll fork from there with the new encryption model,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it definitely made headlines. The Willow quantum computer chip that you're referencing that Google released.
Yep.
But looking at the numbers, and I had run them a couple of years back, you really need like a million qubits or millions of qubits to really start effectively threatening the existing encryption standards. And so we're still a ways out of that, despite sort of the hyperbole.
Yep.
Google, ran this very narrow test, and they're like billions of years of calculations, and it's like, okay, yeah, but for like that, like one one thing, and it's not really a useful comparison for Bitcoin because Bitcoin's not running on CPUs. It's not
Yep.
running on GPUs. It's already gotten to application specific integrated circuits, ASICs that do nothing but mine Bitcoin. The average ASIC's like, I don't even know what it is this year, but last year it was like 100 trillion calculations a second, right?
Yep.
100 teraflops in an ASIC, and there's millions of those globally. So, I think it's going to be a while before it needs to be addressed, but it's worth addressing sooner than later. Though it means a change in hardware potentially. So you probably want to plan out 5 years in advance and,
Yep.
be very clear because you're affecting a lot of capital. You're affecting a lot of people. It's something to address. You don't want to be caught by surprise, right? And somebody has an additional breakthrough, or they figure out how to do the chips in parallel and they've got enough of the chips, even if they're individually 100, that they can aggregate a million qubits, so you don't want to be caught unaware, and clearly people are preparing for it, right? The post quantum or quantum resistant encryption algorithms or encryption standards just got finalized by NIST, the National Institute for Standards, this year, right? And the government Signal integrated it a couple of years ago. So clearly the serious parties are all planning for this, but they're planning long ways in advance, right? So hopefully you really want it to get addressed ahead of time. But I'm reasonably competent or confident that the competent protocols will address it.
I think I have to thank you for something, by the way.
Really?
Saturday morning, my life got a lot happier.
Okay.
I don't remember it. It must have been 3 or 4 months ago. I was like, David, what strings do you have? Folders on Signal. That and Saturday I woke up to folders on Signal.
I can't say I pulled any strings, but they must have heard you somewhere, and they're so Moxie and the crew must be working at it, but they keep making it better and better.
They do.
Yeah, groups and videos gotten pretty good, and one by one, it's like the little open source project they could, right? And
Yeah.
so I love Signal. The other thing I'm constantly red pilling people on, because I don't think people appreciate how good the deep fakes are going to get next year. You're not, even now, but you're not going to be able to trust your buddy's voice, his video. It looked like my friend. It sounded like my friend. It had context of my friend. It wasn't your friend, right? And they're not tricking 75-year-olds anymore. They're tricking 25-year-olds, right? The deepfakes get almost perfectly realistic, right? And this is the worst they're ever going to be, right? They're just going to get better from here. And so there are few things you could do more important than onboard your family and friends to Signal, right?
Yep.
And go through that, just check the authentication, check the hash. Okay,
Yep.
now we have a mathematical proof. It's not a perfect proof of human, but it's basically a proof of device. And
Proof
that's
of
pretty
device.
good, right? The AI is not going to get your device, right?
Yep.
And so, I think that's valuable, and people sort of wake up because the other platforms are getting so noisy. Like every post, every impersonator, like it's nonstop on Telegram and Messenger and WhatsApp and stuff like that. And so, I think that people are really going to have to deal with it this year.
I actually got reached out to by an impersonator the other day, a CoinDesk impersonator. I'm not going to name the person because I know them. I know them directly, and so I was like, "Hey, do you have an alt Telegram account?" Asking me for an interview, and he's like, "Nope," and I was like, "Are you okay if I have fun with this?" So we're gonna have some fun with that, but no,
actually, speaking of that, I saw that somebody created an agent that impersonates an elderly person, and you can route it into a spam call, and its goal is just to keep them on the line as long as possible.
I saw that the
and
British
I was like,
lady.
oh man, that is beautiful. That's truly beautiful. If we could make scamming unprofitable and use AI for good, hallelujah. That would be
if every scammer's first question or multiple times, am I talking to a real person or am I talking to an AI agent? And the fact that they added video to it, so that if they oh, we need you on a Zoom call. Okay, I think I could do that too, dearie. Yeah, that was amazing. There's a YouTuber, a white hat hacker that does a lot of scam stuff that I've loved for the last couple of years and stuff like that. And so, he does voice, just voice changing and stuff like that to get to run them on for hours on end and stuff. But when I saw that video, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah,
this is going to be so fun.
Because an agent scales. It will never get impatient. It will never run out of time. The YouTubers are entertaining, but you need 1 million of those to fight the scammers. So yeah, hopefully that's the direction it's going in.
Yeah, and we're probably, you and me, we're probably going to have to get a rolling algorithm for proof of us.
Yep.
So
Signal.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. Yeah.
We'll figure that one out. But no, it was fun. Everyone that I onboarded into Signal, and I'm like, oh, and okay, now click on my image. Okay, click view safety number. We don't even have to. We can be nerds, but my eyesight's really bad, and compare these numbers. Or you can press the QR code, and I can scan yours and verify, and you can do the same as me. And then it's like, it does nothing but lets me know if you get a new phone. Same,
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's a big, the proof of authenticity is one of those biggest things that's sort of coming out.
Sure.
Did NeurIPS have badges or wristbands?
Sure. Badges. Yeah.
Badges. It sounds like a conference I need to go to.
I know you've got to collect one of those, and put it into the great collection. I don't know if they've announced the location for next year, but I think it's definitely going to be on my schedule going forward. Just the sort of quality of AI talent there, the interesting minds to engage, a lot of signal, very little noise, right?
Yeah.
And so that's cool to see.
It definitely sounds like it needs to be on my rotation as well. I think like the biggest piece on encryption that I saw was at DevCon through Cursive. They had the RSA Dolphin shirt, encryption shirt with "This shirt is a weapon."
Classic.
Because we've gotten there's a term I've heard it again recently, and I always keep dual use for AI.
Yep.
I forget the name of the term, but where it can be used as common enterprise and as a weapon.
Yep. Dual use.
And
Yeah. That's the term.
What is it?
You got it. Dual use. Yeah.
Oh, dual use. Okay. I called it what it was, and that turned out to be. I love naming conventions. Sometimes they make it so easy, but and that's the scary thing, that literally tomorrow the government could issue that Morpheus is a weapon. And what's really great is a lot of people will be like, all right, cool, I'm no longer the face of this, I'm stepping away, but it will still move forward.
Sure. Well, it's, plenty of governments have said they don't like Bitcoin, and Bitcoin doesn't know or care. The math just keeps working, right? So, I think we're, Morpheus is getting to a similar point where, like, the open source is all out there, and that's how it should be, is sort of, permissionless and decentralized. It runs as a series of smart contracts, right? There's no Morpheus company, there's no Morpheus Foundation, right? It really is truly decentralized. And so, I think that's really important, because then you can have a global network, right, that anybody can access.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting, and so it makes it for fun times. We are in amazing times. I'm a little worried what I just saw a recent Wells notice that was issued by the SEC. I'm a little worried about what the current government's going to do over the holidays. But we're going to be here no matter what, because that's what we do.
Yep, we'll keep building. So
Yeah.
it's looking pretty positive. So I'm pretty optimistic about these next few years. Like, the amount of progress we've made in the last year is just incredible.
Yeah. David, I want to be cognizant of your time. It looks like you have some sort of holiday going on around you.
Yeah, it's the old fashioned Christmas one. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, I love being in the same state as you.
yeah.
So, but as always, we end TacoBytes with the same two things: our words of wisdom and the greatest worst knock knock joke on the face of the planet. Before we get into any of that, is there anything else you want to cover from Morpheus, or anything else?
No, man, it's great to see you. Good to catch up.
It's good to see you too, man. So final thoughts and words of wisdom, David.
Keep building.
Keep building. I love it. As always, my words of wisdom are the same. A closed mouth cannot be fed, and you cannot feed a closed mouth, meaning if no one knows you're looking for opportunity can never come a knocking. If opportunity does come knocking and no one answers, it's going to keep on walking. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining us for TacoBytes, your daily bite of Degen, episode 819. Coming to you live on LinkedIn, Player One Taco, YouTube, 0x Degen's YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Telegram, Rumble, Kick, and on-chain via Unlonely, and on-chain via Solana, via Sol Media Tech, and IPF Filecoin. I want to thank everyone for joining us. And as always, knock, knock.
Who's there?